I wanted to go ahead and put my formula out there. I've talked about it before, but I have this like really specific way, and it was of managing Bolt, and it was built off of this kind of energy of I know a little bit how to work no code and low code things. However, I don't know how to code myself. I'm not technical. And oh my God, every single thing is costing so many tokens. How do I minimize the tokens? And then on top of that, how do I minimize how many things Bolt will change while in the flow of building things using Bolt so that I can minimize how many errors it makes? And then on top of that, if it does make an error, I can roll it back easily. And so I came up with this formula, which is essentially how I put together words to build products faster without throwing tokens out the window. That's kind of how I look at it. And so everyone knows that the way that these new agentic coding platforms are is that they use natural language. However, there are three things that natural language doesn't mean. One, it does not mean it's unstructured. If you give Bolt a whole list of a huge prompt, it might build things not in the way that you intended. So you see some of my videos where I'm shocked at how intuitive Bolt was with what I was looking for. It's because I built this framework called the Gen Prompt Framework Doc, which is essentially the modern version of PRDs for people who are vibe coding or people who are non-technical but still building using agentic coding platforms. The This Gen Prompt Framework Doc will help you structure your product. And that is very important because sometimes I see people just kind of word vomit onto Bolt and it just tries to build what it says, but it ends up looking like a Frankenstein. And so by having this GPF doc, it allows you to be structured and use natural language. The second thing is that it's not muddy. So the GPF doc helps you make sure that everything you're telling Bolt is clear, has pristine clarity, because the more clear you are when prompting Bolt and chatting and engaging and asking for updates, the more clear you are, the more precise and accurate it is to build exactly what you think that you want it to build. And so it's rare that I tell it to build something and it goes completely off the rails and builds something completely opposite. And that is because of the GPF docs that I build and write for every single product that I build. The third thing is natural language doesn't mean that it's non-sequential. So everything I do as I go through these videos, you'll see I go through the Gem Prompt Framework doc, and sometimes I'll jump out of order, but by and large, it is mostly sequential, where I'm going step by step by step and layer by layer by layer in order to make sure that I'm not throwing tokens out the window. And sometimes that means that it's going to build something opposite. I have to roll it back. Sometimes it means that it's going to make an error due to the way that I prompted Bolt. And in that error, I then have to spend tokens to like correct it. And so I usually try to run things in sequential order. So I work on one feature on one page, and then I go to the next feature and the next page. I usually am not building. Sometimes I will do that, and that's when a feature is dependent on another feature. So I like to actually like tell Bolt to create two features at once so that they're intertwined with each other, especially when I've already involved Supabase on the database side, and I want the database schema to be accurate, and I want them to be intertwined. Sometimes I will then I'll prompt Bolt with two different features at the same time, but usually I'm not doing that. All right, so let's talk about the levels. This is how the formula is structured. It's based on levels. So there's the page level, there's a function level, there's a feature level. And by knowing what the levels are, it helps Bolt when you're prompting it to go exactly where you need it to go and change exactly what you need to change or build exactly where you need to build it. And so let's start with the page level. It directs to motion. So if you think about like a whole swath, like, where, you're teaching a kid how to find Waldo in a Where's Waldo book, you have to show them the direction. Okay, it's on this page or this page. All right, it's in the bottom quadrant if you're trying to help them. If you're like me as a parent, I'm just like, you got to figure that out on your own. But if you're trying to help them, you say what page it's on, and that directs them, and it moves their motion from one page to the other to make sure that they know. So in this case, the page might be a user profile. Then you go to function level. So you're saying on the user profile page, in the billing area, That's a function. So the billing function within your app or your product. And that, what I believe, is what's going to drive the value. So the function is going to drive your value. And then lastly, the feature level is what's going to drive your revenue. So you might say on the user page or on the user profile page, and on the user profile page within the billing area, make sure that the subscriptions that are laid out are plus, premium, and platinum. That was alliteration on accident. And they're going to cost X amount. And they're going to have a description of these bullet points with a button at the bottom. And each button is going to be tied to a Stripe payment link because Bolt doesn't do webhooks very well. So I use payment links. So a Stripe payment link. But if they are currently at the top tier, then all the buttons will automatically say downgrade. And if they're at the bottom tier, then all the buttons above it will say upgrade. And if they're in the middle tier, the button on the left will say downgrade and the button on top will say upgrade. And then it'll build it exactly like that because you're being clear, you're being structured, and you're being sequential. And then you're also telling it on what page, in what area of that page, and what feature you're trying to adjust. And so that is my formula. And it has saved me so many tokens. Sometimes someone will say that they've been like hemorrhaging tokens in a specific way. And I'm like, your product is either really big or you are prompting really poorly. And so that is what this formula helps you do. And again, on the profile page, in the billing area, and then this is where we go about describing the feature that we want to implement. And by doing that, you're able to, again, if they make a mistake, you're able to roll it back. And the best part is that as you continue to build products, you'll start to understand what it'll call things. So it might say in the subscription modal or in the subscription billing features area. And then you don't need this formula as much because then you could just type in the subscription features area modal, change this to that and animate X to Y. And that'll be a really great way. So hopefully this helps you not hemorrhage tokens, and hopefully it helps you make it so that Bolt is kind of creating exactly what's in your brain, even down to a design. Like I don't use Figma to design because I kind of usually have an idea of exactly what I wanted to build. And then I'm going to maybe ChatGPT and plugging in a couple of web pages and saying, hey, can you create a design structure? I'm going to prompt Bolt, and then it'll create a design structure or a brand style guide that then I'll prompt Bolt with the same screenshots. And then usually it'll get pretty close to what I'm trying to build. So hopefully this helps.